You know what they crave, right? A twitch, a crack, a raised brow, a clenched jaw, that little shake in your voice. That's all they wait for. That tiny break in your armor that screams, "You got to me." And when they see it, oh, it feeds them. It gives them purpose. It validates every dirty little scheme they've run behind your back. So let me teach you something they'll never say out loud. Silence. It's a weapon. It's the coldest form of revenge. You walk in, no smiles, no greetings. Just eyes that have seen hell and came back colder. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need fists to win wars. You just need to not react. Because when you react, you give them power. When you respond, they calculate. But when you're silent, you're a storm with no schedule. And that terrifies them. People don't fear loud. Loud is predictable. Loud is controllable. It's the quiet ones that unsettle the room. The ones who watch, who listen, who don't need to bark to bite. You ever seen a snake hiss before it strikes? No, it coils. It waits. And just when the prey gets cocky, boom, done. That's silence. That's composure. That's knowing your worth without needing to explain it. And when they gossip, when they twist your name, when they joke about your fall, stay still. Stay cold. Because nothing drives a traitor more insane than realizing the person they betrayed didn't even flinch. You get me? This world, it's full of noise. Empty noise. People yelling for validation, screaming for attention, making noise to cover up the fact they got nothing real inside. And the second you try to explain yourself, you enter their circus. You dance in their chaos. But when you hold your tongue, when you stand your ground and just watch, you make them nervous. You become unreadable, and nothing scares the manipulative more than someone they can't manipulate. So when they push your buttons, disconnect the damn board. Make them wonder if they ever even had control. They'll test you. They'll whisper in circles. They'll poke, hoping you explode. They want that reaction. Not because it solves anything, but because it proves you're still playing their game. Don't play it. Create your own. Make silence your answer. Make distance your dialogue. Let your success scream while your mouth stays shut. Because when you react, you confirm their relevance. But when you don't, you kill their existence in your world. You think pain needs to be expressed to be healed? Nah. Sometimes healing is done in shadows. With your own damn hands, you stitch your soul together without applause. And that, my friend, makes you dangerous. People can't stand a quiet fighter. One who doesn't whine. One who doesn't beg. One who rebuilds in silence and returns unannounced. They'll ask each other, what's he thinking? Why isn't he mad? That paranoia. That's your presence working in silence. That's you haunting their comfort. That's you being more terrifying without a single word spoken. You want to win? Control your reactions. Control your silence. Be a man of few words, but when those words drop, let them hit like bombs. Let your calmness be the thing that unnerves rooms. Let your lack of response be the echo in their heads when they lay at night, wondering if you're done or just preparing. And trust me, the second you master silence, you no longer walk into rooms, you own them. You ever notice how the loudest people in the room always seem the weakest when the lights go off? That's because noise is a mask, a distraction from their lack of depth. But silence ain't empty. It's full of answers, full of power, full of revenge that doesn't need witnesses. See, most people, they want applause for their pain, sympathy for their scars. They want the world to hear how they've been wronged, how they deserve better. But the truth is, the real ones, the real monsters, they don't make announcements. They don't cry about the betrayal. They get quiet. They disappear. And when they return, they don't come back for explanations. They come back for results, for payback, and not in screams, in silence, in success, in moves nobody saw coming, because real pain doesn't shout, it whispers, it builds, it evolves. And when it's done evolving, it doesn't need permission to destroy everything that stood against it. I've seen it. The fake smiles, the backhanded compliments, the little passive jabs people throw your way. And if you react, they act shocked. Like, whoa, why are you so sensitive? But that's the game. They provoke, you explode, and they play the victim. It's a loop, a rigged deck. So you want to really mess with their heads? Don't react. Let them walk around wondering why their tricks stopped working. Let them drown in their own noise while you upgrade in silence. Because when you stay calm, when you don't feed their need for attention, you become a ghost. They can't touch, but they still feel you. Every room they enter, they look over their shoulder. Every time your name comes up, there's a pause, a silence. That's when you know you've got control. And don't mistake silence for weakness. Nah. Weakness is when you let others dictate your emotions, when you let their actions pull you like a puppet. But silence, that's choice. That's strength. That's you saying, I see everything, but I choose not to dance to your noise. It's you watching them drown in their own drama while you sip your peace like it's fine wine. You see, reacting is easy. Anyone can raise their voice, throw a fit, slam a door. That's predictable. That's expected. But holding your tongue when you've got every reason to spit fire, that's elite. That's scary. That's power most people will never understand. Because silence doesn't beg. It doesn't explain. It doesn't seek validation. It simply observes and strikes when the timing is perfect. They'll say you've changed, that you're cold, that you don't care anymore. Let them. Let them build stories in their heads, trying to fill in the blanks you left behind. Let them run in circles, chasing a reaction that never comes. Because the second you stop explaining yourself, the second you stop reacting to every little jab, they realize you're no longer accessible. And people fear what they can't access, what they can't control. You become a mystery, a question with no answer. And there's nothing more terrifying than someone who stopped talking and started building. Your silence, that's your evolution. It's where you stop being a pawn and start becoming the board, where every move is calculated, every step is lethal. You stop entertaining clowns and start becoming the riddle they can't solve. And when they finally realize they can't touch you, when they finally see that their noise no longer reaches your frequency, that's when you've won. Not with noise, not with drama, with silence. Cold, calculated, surgical silence. The kind that doesn't end the conversation, it ends the war. You want to know what silence really is? It's discipline. Not everyone's got it. It's not some poetic nonsense or fake spiritual pose. It's war strategy. It's the art of not giving your enemy anything they can use. Because every word, every facial tic, every emotional leak, they use it. They take your pain, your truth, your outburst, and they twist it. You break once, they label you forever. That one time you got loud, now you're unstable. That one time you showed love, now you're desperate. That one time you showed hurt, now you're weak. So you stop giving them anything. You kill the leak. You kill the script. You become unreadable. You walk like smoke, feel like steel, and talk like thunder when you choose to. But only when you choose to. Because when you stay silent, when you watch them throw all their petty games your way, and you don't even blink, that's when they panic. They start creating scenarios. They start overthinking. They start cracking. Because they realize they can't move you. And when you become unmovable, you become untouchable. Silence forces people to deal with their own reflection. When you don't react, you don't give them an escape. You become a mirror that reflects their own insecurity back at them. You don't need to insult them. They'll start questioning themselves. You don't need to scream. They'll hear their own guilt louder than anything you could have said. You sit still. Let them do the math. Let them replay their actions in their head, again and again, trying to figure out what you're thinking. And that's where your power explodes, in their confusion. You don't even need revenge. You just let them drown in the silence you left behind. And if you're patient enough, if you've really mastered your inner fire, they'll burn themselves alive trying to light your flame again. And let's not pretend that silence is always easy. No, it's not. It's one of the hardest damn things to do when you're betrayed. When someone spits on your loyalty, lies to your face, mocks the love you gave. It's hard to shut up. It's hard not to scream. But you do it anyway. Why? Because the goal isn't to be heard, it's to win. The goal isn't to prove a point, it's to make a statement they never forget. And the loudest statement you'll ever make? It's walking away without a word. No arguments, no explanations, just silence. That's when they know you're different. That's when they realize they didn't just lose your attention, they lost access to your world permanently. And when you cut access like that, that's hell for people who thought they had you figured out. Don't let these snakes fool you with their laughter. It's nervous. They laugh because they're uncomfortable, because you don't bite the bait. You don't feed the fire. You just sit back and let them choke on their own words. And when they finally notice that the man they tried to break is still standing, still moving, still grinding, but without saying a damn thing, that's the punch they never recover from. Not because it was loud, but because it was cold, surgical, unapologetic. That's the silence of a man who knows his value. A man who no longer explains himself to people who were never worthy of the explanation to begin with. This silence you wear now, it's not emptiness, it's pressure. You're becoming something. And pressure, it doesn't announce itself. It builds, quietly, slowly, and then one day, boom, you arrive. No warning, no parade, just presence. Heavy, intimidating, unshakable. That's your revenge. Not some rant on the phone, not some post online, not a heated argument that goes nowhere. No, your revenge is patience. Your revenge is self-control. Your revenge is becoming so untouchable that they can only talk about you, but never to you again. And you let them talk, let them fantasize, let them lie. Meanwhile, you build in silence, in shadows, in mastery. Dot, dot, oh. You know what silence does? It separates the animals from the monsters. Anyone can bark. Dogs do that. They get loud when they're scared, when they need to make up for the lack of bite. But monsters? Monsters don't need to bark. They just stare. They watch. They wait. And then they strike so hard, so damn precise, that no one even has time to scream. That's you now. You've outgrown the noise. You've outgrown the need to prove a point. You've realized that the ones who need to shout are usually the ones who've already lost the war. They're just too loud to admit it. You sit in that silence like a throne. You wear it like a crown. Because when you stop reacting, you stop bleeding. You stop feeding vultures that were only ever waiting for you to fall. They call it cold? Good. Be cold. You've been warm, you've been open, you've been honest, and they burned you for it. So now you freeze the room. Now your presence alone makes the temperature drop. Let them shiver in your silence. Let's talk about the real pain for a second. The kind that doesn't come with bruises. The kind that doesn't scream. The kind that just sits in your chest like a loaded gun with no safety. You know it. You felt it. That betrayal that comes with a smile. That lie that comes wrapped in affection. That moment you realize the people you would have died for were the same ones digging your grave behind your back. And what did you do? You stayed loyal. You gave chances. You explained yourself. You tried to fix what was never your mess. And they used that. They mistook your kindness for blindness, but not anymore. Now, you let the silence do the talking. You let the distance speak louder than your love ever did. Because silence doesn't lie. It doesn't explain. It doesn't negotiate. It just cuts deep, without apology, without hesitation. And the best part? It leaves no fingerprints. You don't owe anyone a reaction. Read that again. You don't owe anyone a damn reaction. Not to their lies, not to their provocations, not to their guilt trips dressed as concern. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself progress. And neither of those things come from dancing in the dirt with people who were never meant to sit at your table. You think kings argue with clowns. No. They let the court entertain itself while they build empires in silence. You think wolves waste time barking at sheep? No, they just hunt. Strategically, quietly. And when the moment comes, they don't make noise. They make history. That's the level you're heading toward. The level where your silence becomes your most violent act. Where people realize, too late, that losing your words was the beginning of losing your presence, and losing your presence. That's where regret begins. You ever watch someone panic because you didn't reply? It's a beautiful thing. Suddenly, they replay every conversation, every message, every mistake. Silence triggers introspection. It forces accountability. It exposes guilt. That's why people hate it so much. They beg for closure. They demand explanations. But what they're really asking for is the comfort of knowing they still control your emotions. So don't give it to them. Let them live with that echo. Let them fill in the silence with their own demons. Let them rot in the empty space where your voice used to be. Because if they really cared, they would have listened when you spoke. But now you speak with absence. Now your silence is the mirror that shows them what they destroyed. And I know it hurts. I know you want to scream. You want to break something. You want to shake the world and yell, "Look what they did to me." But what does that do? Who does that help? It won't change what happened. It won't fix the betrayal. It won't bring back the version of you that they broke. So instead, you go quiet. You go ghost. You go within. And you build something so powerful, so undeniable, that one day, when your name crosses their mind, it won't be with laughter. It won't be with pity. It'll be with fear, with regret, with a hollow ache of what they threw away. That's what silence gives you. Not just power, but revenge. Not in the form of destruction, but in evolution. They'll swear they miss you the day your silence becomes louder than your presence ever was. And that silence, it doesn't come from hate. Nah. Hate still means they matter. Hate still ties your worth to their existence. But silence? That comes from detachment. That's when you don't just walk away, you vanish. And you don't vanish to make a point. You vanish because there's nothing left to say. You've spoken with loyalty, with patience, with pain. You've screamed through every word you didn't say, and they still didn't listen. So now you leave. You go where your energy is respected, where your peace isn't constantly on trial. Because let's be real, people don't hear you when you speak, they only hear you when you're gone, so go. Let them choke on the silence they once took for granted. Let your absence speak all the words you buried while they laughed, lied, and lived like your pain was entertainment. Let your silence be the funeral of every version of you they abused. You think they'll forget you? Maybe at first. Maybe they'll laugh with their new audience. Act like you were just another chapter. But time has a brutal way of unmasking fake smiles. And when the crowd disappears, when the excitement fades, when the ones they ran to don't offer half the loyalty you gave, they'll remember. In silence, in the dark. When the room gets quiet and their thoughts grow louder, they'll hear it. Your silence, your peace, your growth. They'll replay every moment they dismissed you. Every time they thought you were weak because you didn't fight back. And it'll haunt them because you didn't just move on. You upgraded. You evolved. You became untouchable. And that's the kind of revenge that doesn't need fireworks. It doesn't need a scene. It just needs time. Time and silence. And both are free. But only the strong know how to use them like a weapon. People can argue with your words. They can twist them, mock them, deny them. But silence? They can't argue with silence. They can't debate absence. They can't manipulate what isn't said. It's the cleanest form of control. And that's why it drives them insane. Because they don't know if you're hurt or healing, if you're angry or indifferent, if you're done or planning. And in that not knowing, they destroy themselves. They create stories, imagine conversations, fight wars with ghosts of you in their head. And you keep building, quietly, alone, with purpose, no distractions, no noise, just that quiet rage in your chest pushing you forward. Not to prove them wrong, no, but to prove to yourself that silence was always your power. You just forgot for a while. You let the world pull you into noise that never deserved your voice. And don't let anyone shame you for going silent. They'll say you've changed, that you're heartless, that you're distant. Damn right you are. You had to be, because being close got you hurt. Being open got you betrayed. So now you move different. Not bitter, just better. You learned the hard way that loyalty isn't always returned and love isn't always pure. But your silence, that's yours. That's sacred. That's where your power lives now. Not in arguments, not in comebacks, in calm, in restraint, in the quiet rebuilding of a stronger you. And the next time they see you, they won't recognize you. Not because you look different, but because you no longer respond to the same chaos they used to throw at you. You've risen above it, and you did it all in silence. Let them talk. Let them whisper. Let them twist the story. Let them throw your name around in rooms you no longer walk into. Let them feed off each other's delusions. Because here's the truth. They're not talking because they moved on. They're talking because your silence left a void they can't fill. They mock what they miss. They laugh to forget how solid you were. But behind that noise is fear. Fear that maybe, just maybe, you finally saw through the game. That you're no longer the version of yourself they could manipulate, guilt trip, or gaslight into submission. That now you've become what they never expected. Someone who doesn't need them. Someone who doesn't even hate them. Just someone who sees them for what they are. Temporary. And when you reach that level, when you stop giving a damn, not out of bitterness, but because you genuinely feel nothing, that's when you win. That's when your silence becomes a language only the guilty can hear. You've got to understand something deep. Silence isn't just an action. It's a declaration. It says, I don't owe you anything. Not my time, not my pain, not my explanation. You see, some people only want to hear your side so they can twist it against you. They don't want the truth. They want ammunition. So you give them nothing. And when you give them nothing, they start falling apart, trying to create something. They'll invent lies. They'll fabricate your emotions. They'll post cryptic nonsense, hoping it'll pull you back into their little drama stage. Don't take the bait, because every time you stay quiet, every time you don't clap back, every time you choose peace over proving a point, you build pressure. And that pressure, that's what cracks facades. That's what shatters illusions. Let them implode under the weight of your absence. You remember all those times you defended people who wouldn't even spit in your direction when your name gets dragged? Yeah, that was the old you. That version of you needed to be liked, needed to be understood. But you're not that person anymore. Now you're dangerous. Because now you know that silence isn't weakness. It's control. You control who gets access. You control what gets a response. You control who gets to disturb your peace. And when you've got that kind of control, nobody can play you. Nobody can bait you into battles that don't matter. Because you've seen the cost of reacting. You've seen how cheap your energy became when you handed it out, trying to explain your heart to people who were just pretending to care. Now you protect that energy like gold. You invested in silence, in peace, in your grind, in your evolution. People don't fear rage. They understand rage. They expect it. But silence confuses them. It makes them paranoid. Because when someone doesn't react, they become unreadable. They can't tell if you're calm or plotting, if you're done or just quiet before the storm. And that fear, that not knowing, that's your advantage. That's how you reclaim power without ever raising your voice. And they'll feel it in the awkward pauses when your name is mentioned, in the silence that follows their fake jokes, in the pit of their gut when they realize you no longer react, not because you're numb, but because you're done, because you've outgrown the space where they exist. So keep building in silence. Let them talk. Let them laugh. Let them believe they've won. Because one day, they'll look around and realize they can't reach you anymore. Not emotionally, not spiritually, not even mentally. You've climbed out of their reach, and you did it without saying a word. You did it by learning the power of silence, by understanding that sometimes the loudest "I'm done" doesn't need to be said. It just needs to be felt, and they'll feel it. Every day, every time they sit in the quiet they thought they wanted, because eventually they'll realize the silence you left behind was the loudest thing they'll ever hear. You want to know what silence does to people who betrayed you? It eats them alive, slowly, quietly. It doesn't show up like rage does. No fire, no screaming, no breaking things. Just space, distance. And that space becomes their torture chamber. Because the thing about silence, it gives them time to think. And when you give a guilty person time to think, they unravel. You're no longer defending yourself. You're not playing the role they assigned you in their sick little narrative. You're gone. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually gone. And that's the real punishment. Not revenge, not war, not screaming matches in hallways or text fights at 2 a.m. No. The punishment is them realizing the best version of you is no longer accessible. That the loyalty they played with, the heart they took for granted, the presence they got used to, it's never coming back. And they'll start to feel it in the most random places, in moments that don't even make sense. A song, a smell, a silence. That's how haunting you become when you walk away without a sound. There's something sacred about not reacting, something dangerous, because when you stop reacting, you stop bleeding. You stop leaking emotions into hands that only wanted to stain them. You stop giving them the blueprint to destroy you. And that scares them. That breaks them. Because people don't know how to fight silence. They know how to argue. They know how to manipulate. But they don't know what to do when the person they used to control suddenly doesn't respond anymore. You become a black hole. No noise, no energy, no explanation, just presence. And that presence becomes heavier than any shout ever could. You walk into a room and say nothing, and the whole atmosphere changes. Because silence carries weight. It carries memories. It carries warnings. And the ones who hurt you, they feel it. They feel it more than anything you could ever say. You gotta understand, Not everyone deserves your words. Some people are too far gone, too twisted, too busy playing victim to ever hear your truth. So why waste breath on explanations they'll only spin? Why waste time giving closure to someone who already closed the door behind your back? Let your silence be the closure. Let your absence be the answer. Let your peace be the revenge. And I promise you, nothing hits harder than indifference. When you stop caring, stop chasing, stop begging to be understood. They feel it. It burns. It echoes. Because deep down they knew you were real. They knew what they had. They just gambled on the idea that you'd never leave. So, when you finally do, and you do it without warning, that's when they break. That's when they sit with the ghosts of all the versions of you they destroyed, trying to remember when it all slipped away. And don't get it twisted. Staying silent doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're strong enough to let karma do the talking. You don't need to shout to shake the earth. You don't need to fight to win the war. You just need to know who you are. Because once you know that, once you realize your worth doesn't live in their validation, you stop reacting. You stop proving. You stop explaining yourself to people who would rather see you broken than healed. And that's where your power is born. That's where you become dangerous. Because silence makes you unpredictable. Silence makes you untouchable. And when you've been through hell and chose not to scream, that's when they know you're not the same. You're not here for drama. You're here for peace. But if they cross that line again, you'll end it without a sound. Just a silence so final, it'll echo forever in the back of their mind. There comes a moment when silence becomes not just a choice, but a way of life, a lifestyle, a damn shield you wear like armor forged in every betrayal you never reacted to. And the people who once thought they had you wrapped around their fingers, they don't recognize you anymore. Because silence changes you. It refines you. You stop chasing closure. You stop seeking justice. You realize that some wars aren't worth fighting because the battlefield is filthy and your soul deserves better. So you step back. You erase your presence from their chaos. No goodbye. No explanations. Just gone. And when they look around, expecting your voice to echo, your defense to kick in, your energy to fuel their drama, and it never comes, that's when the silence hits them like a freight train. Because they didn't just lose access to your voice, they lost access to your spirit. They thought you'd always be there, didn't they? That no matter how many times they disrespected your peace, twisted your truth, or took your loyalty for granted, you'd come back, apologize, beg, explain. But not this time. This time you've grown teeth beneath your silence. This time you've mastered the art of the unreadable, and that terrifies them. Because they don't know who you are anymore. The soft version of you, gone. The version that waited for texts, forgave too quickly, explained too much, buried. What stands in your place now is something colder, smarter, sharper, not out of spite, but out of necessity. Because the more noise you cut, the more peace you gain. The more reactions you withhold, the more power you reclaim. And when your energy becomes that protected, people can feel it. They sense that wall, that gate, that line they can't cross anymore. And if they dare to try, they'll be met with nothing but silence. Not because you don't have something to say, but because they no longer deserve to hear it. You see, silence isn't empty. It's calculated. It's precise. It's loaded with every unspoken truth you once wasted breath trying to explain. And now you let the silence scream for you. Because when you finally realize that the most powerful response is no response at all, everything shifts. Your focus changes. Your goals sharpen. You stop entertaining. You stop arguing. You stop justifying your healing to people who never cared about your wounds in the first place. And you watch as they self-destruct, trying to get a rise out of you, trying to trigger the old you. But the old you is gone. The one who used to react, dead. And in its place stands someone who walks with purpose and speaks only when it counts. And that silence, that's lethal, because it doesn't come from weakness. It comes from the scars they can't see, the battles you fought alone, the nights you stayed quiet while screaming inside. And now, you don't scream, you rebuild, brick by quiet brick, until one day your presence becomes the revenge, and they'll swear you've changed. Damn right you did. Growth is uncomfortable. Growth is isolating. But silence made you see everything clearer. You noticed the fake loyalty, the one-sided conversations, the hollow apologies. And you didn't confront it. You studied it. You stopped asking, why did they do this to me? And started saying, I'm glad I saw them for who they are. That shift, that silence, that's when your soul woke up. And once it wakes up, it doesn't go back to sleep. You don't beg to be understood anymore. You let your peace do the talking. You let your work, your success, your discipline scream louder than any rant you could have delivered. And one day they'll scroll through a feed and see your face, elevated, calm, thriving. And it'll hit them. Damn. They didn't just walk away, they evolved. And that evolution, that's what silence gave you. That's what not reacting built.